Hey, it's Mike. Thanks for tuning back in. So I have numbers 74 through 70 of my ACE100 list. Remember, this is attainable cards of the greatest athletes of all time in every sport imaginable that has cards. They are also the most iconic cards of these players or athletes. And I've talked about this before, but this list is kind of not heavy on boxing, but there are more boxing cards than there would be if it were just a more modern thing. Because in the first half of the 20th century, boxing was wildly popular. So there's a boxing card in this one. And this is, these athletes were top athletes of their time, the type of athletes that everybody knew about. You would sit around the dinner table and talk about these athletes specifically. So, or chase these cards. So I'm going to jump right in here. The first one I just talked about it is the 2014 Bowman Chrome Mookie Betts. Now I got it in an autographed version in a Beckett slab. You don't need to, and there are a lot of variations, of course, as not as many as there are today, but 10 years ago there were still quite a few variations of these cards. Any one of them would be great. I actually have this card raw as well, unsigned, which perfectly fine with me as well, but I wanted to get because it's autographed, I wanted to get it authenticated. You know a lot about Mookie Betts, one of the greatest athletes of his generation, also quite a bowler. He's bowled a 300 a bunch of times. He might, by the end of his career, surpass Mike Trout as the greatest baseball player of this generation. I think it's a pretty decent chance. This is the latest card in my ACE100 list. There's nothing since 2014 in my list because I wanted to leave it to, you needed to have 10 years since you were a rookie. So Mookie Betts, this cost me $250, I think. So you can get this card raw, unsigned for, I don't know, $5 or $10 maybe? I'm not really sure, to be honest, but it's not expensive, the base. But then there's also tons of variations, like I mentioned. Now, if you do get it raw, make sure you have good supplies. And this video and this series is sponsored by the Penny Sleever. The Penny Sleever, as I showed the other day, has the best supplies in the industry. And you can use my code, JWH, to get 10% off your first order. Shipping is free once you've spent $59. And they have all the best supplies imaginable. I hear from my subscribers all the time who buy them. They're amazing. JWH at checkout for 10% off your first order. Link is in the description to this video. Number 73 is Bjorn Borg, 1974 Panini Sport, a card I don't have yet. A PSA 5 goes for about $300. So very, very attainable for many collectors. I know not everybody. So Borg, I'm a big tennis fan, and back in the 70s, tennis was huge. And Borg was actually the first tennis player to earn $1 million in a season because he was so popular. Swedish tennis player. He won 4 consecutive French Opens, 6 total, 5 straight Wimbledons, and then he was also a 4-time finalist at the US Open. Just a massive star in the 70s and early 80s. Number 72, another tennis player, unintentionally, Panini Supersport, 1988, Andre Agassi. There are a few variations of this one, which didn't matter to me. It's usually in the back. Yeah, Panini Supersport, Andre Agassi. Agassi was, he images everything was his motto, and in fact wore a wig for quite a long time because he was losing his hair, and he had come up with this images everything brand. And so once he started losing his hair, had to start wearing a wig. Agassi, I was a massive tennis fan in the 90s. I watched every tennis match imaginable. I watched a lot of sports, baseball, basketball, tennis, a little bit of football. I got back into football in the mid-90s. He won 4 Australian Opens, 1 French Open, 1 Wimbledon, 2 US Open titles. He was the second player to win a career Grand Slam and the first to win it on 3 different surfaces. Pretty cool. He was late in his career. He was amazing. They called him the Punisher. He would hit deep, almost line drives. He was a lot of fun to watch. And he had shaved his head and he was just all business. Yeah, I loved Agassi. Went on to marry Steffi Graf, who is in my women's list as well. So quite the power couple. Number 71 is the 1985 Topps Mark McGwire. One of the big chase cards of the 80s. It's still very valuable in a PSA 10, very hard to get. Worth about $3,000 in 10. You can get this card for about $5 raw, and I'm perfectly happy to have it like this. I might just send it off to PSA just to get it slabbed, because I want all 100 of these to be slabbed, I think. I'm not 100% sure, undecided. But at some point I'm going to have a display case with all 100 of these cards. It's going to take me years to get to 100, but... and you know the story of McGwire. One of the greatest home run hitters of all time, one of the lowest home runs per at bat of all time, or at bats per home run, whatever. Steroid use, there's a big story there, but McGwire, man, what a hitter. Number 70, 1951 Topps Rocky Marciano. One of the greatest boxers of all time. I paid $125 for this. This is a PSA 2. So again, very attainable. All of these are very, very inexpensive. He was the world heavyweight champion 5 straight years, 1952 to 1956. He only competed for about 9 years. So I think in 47 or 48 is when he started. And this is, of course, 51, but considered his rookie card. Topps Ringside, 1951 Topps Ringside. He finished his career as the only heavyweight champion to remain undefeated. Pretty amazing. Just a great, great athlete. And I have a couple more boxers in my list. So I don't know boxing. I don't know anything about it. I just know when I look up greatest athletes of all time, there are a lot of boxers because of how popular boxing was. In fact, one of them is right there behind me. Little sneak preview, Muhammad Ali. But yeah, now we're through. We're up to number 69. We'll get to next week, hopefully. No Attic Find Friday today. I might do one tomorrow morning if I have time. I put out a new newsletter today, following up on my newsletter from Monday. Has some nice anecdotes, and then also maybe a little evidence that eBay sales were down in November. Still no evidence that it's a trend. But yeah, my newsletter, junkboxhero.com. Go sign up, it's free. And I appreciate you guys watching. Hope you have a great weekend.